Today, I'll be showing you how an average person can survive in the depths. Because unless you're a legendary hero who can conjure flying devices out of thin air, or survive weeks without any food or water, getting trapped in the depths could very well be a death sentence. For an average being, this isn't some grand adventure. This is a survival nightmare that would test even the most experienced explorer. So, how long could you actually survive down here? How would you find water when pools of gloom could easily surprise you? What could you possibly eat when most of the vegetation looks like it wants to eat you first? And most importantly, how in Hylia's name would you ever get out alive? Well, unfortunately for me, but fortunately for you, I'm about to teach you firsthand. Because this isn't just a thought experiment, this is the story of how I, your average Hylian, got trapped in the depths with nothing but my wits, whatever I could scavenge from that forsaken underworld, and quite frankly, a ton of luck. So listen close, because answering these 4 questions just might save your life. It all started 3 weeks ago when I received what I thought was the opportunity of a lifetime. The research team at Lookout Landing, you know, those brilliant folks working with Pura and Joshua on documenting the upheaval, they needed a filmmaker to document their latest expedition. And where were they heading? Straight down into the mysterious depths through the Great Plateau North Chasm. Now, I'll be honest with you, I should have known better. As a Hylian filmmaker, I've been across every bit of Hyrule's surface, and that alone is enough to kill you. So why would the depths be any safer? But the chance to be the first to document that mysterious underground world? Well, I couldn't resist. I soon met the research team, made up of several of Hyrule's finest beings, including Captain Hawes from the Monster Control Crew, and a research specialist who'd been studying the Zonai ruins. There was also Penn, yes, that Penn from the Lucky Clover Gazette, who was documenting everything for what he hoped would be the scoop of a lifetime. I grabbed my camera, a canteen, some flint, as well as some of my special pine sap glue I showed you how to make in a previous video. The rest of our supplies and rations were loaded into a barrel and safely stowed aboard our transport. Speaking of, the plan was to use a specially designed hot air balloon to descend through the chasm. The balloon was equipped with Zonai technology that would allow us to navigate the rocky chasm walls and, most importantly, it would be our ticket back to the surface. Before we knew it, it was time to go. During the initial descent, everything was running smoothly, watching the familiar landscape of Hyrule vanish as we descended into this tremendous unknown underworld was both frightening and fascinating. We were taking notes, I was recording footage, and we were all marveling at the strange beauty of this place. Link had been down before us, illuminating much of the land by activating light roots, but was little help when asked for more information on his experience, opting to say nothing apart from sharing some data from his Purapad. Data that would later be invaluable, but more on that later. The point was, we really didn't know what to expect. As we landed, we ventured out, looking for anything of note. But our excitement led to our folly, as curiosity caused us to separate, leaving us isolated from each other. As I recorded a close-up of some nearby fauna, a fiery arrow landing nearby alerted me to an incoming threat. Monsters! But these monsters were unlike anything I had ever seen. They were infected from head to toe with gloom. In the distance, I could hear the screams of my team, and an explosion was the clear sound of our ride and rations being destroyed. With a bokoblin closing in on me, all I could do was run. Stumbling blindly through a nearby grove of trees, I tripped and fell, knocking myself out cold. When I came to, I was alone. Bruised, disoriented, and completely cut off from the surface world. But I was alive. As I surveyed my surroundings, I could see some kind of light in the distance. Not the warm light of a light route, but something more manufactured. Before I could go there though, I was hit with a feeling even more concerning than panic. Thirst. The survival rule everyone knows is you can go about 3 days without water, but in a high-stress scenario like this, that timeline shrinks fast. I had to find a clean water source, and quickly. So I did what anyone would do. I started looking for clues. Even in this bizarre landscape, water still follows basic rules like flowing downhill and collecting in low areas. In the distance, I could see the land drop off, and I made my way there. I soon came to a cliff and found what I was looking for: water. Those manufactured lights were still shining in the distance, but I first slowly made my way down to the water. Unsure of the water's purity, I noticed a slight heat coming off of it. The water reminded me of some of the hot springs I had seen dotted around Death Mountain or the Heber Mountains. With my head still aching from my fall, I decided to risk lowering myself into the inviting water. To my delight, my headache immediately cleared, and I could feel the cuts and bruises from before disappearing. Later on, I learned that this was the secret spring of revival, which explained the healing properties of the water. I gleefully filled my canteen with the rehabilitating liquid, but it wasn't long before my next issue presented itself. Food. While this spring could heal my external wounds, I could still die of hunger. And as I was about to find out, finding something to eat down here was going to nearly be the death of me. But looking around, I noticed the landscape wasn't all natural. Man-made structures surrounded me, structures that I could only assume had been built by the Zonai. Those shining lights had to be connected to the Zonai structures as well. I decided to make my way to the larger buildings while keeping an eye out for any sources of food. You can survive about 3 weeks without food, but like water, a high-stress survival situation will leave your body needing to replenish calories much faster. And when it comes to harvestable plants in the depths, your options are extremely limited. The only things naturally growing down here are bomb flowers, puff shrooms, and muddle buds. Not exactly a nutritious spread, as I was about to find out the hard way. A muddle bud was the first plant I came across, and given this was the first time I'd seen one, I didn't know a thing about it, but I did know I needed to eat. I cautiously took the tip of my sword, cut off a small bit of the leaf to sample, and took a bite. And that's when things got weird. My eyes started to blur, and my vision turned red. I started to feel angry, like I could hurt anyone who crossed my path. Then, just as suddenly as it came on, it stopped, and I could see like normal. Probably best to just save those for another time. The next potential meal I came across was a puff shroom, but given it was sprouting literal spores into the air, I decided to pass on it being edible, which turned out to be the right call. But all the same, I grabbed some as I went. I saw some bomb flowers as well, but having been familiar with these on the surface, I knew that getting fire near it or taking a bite would be the last thing that I ever did. But by this point, my stomach was raging, and I was beginning to lose hope that I would find anything edible. All the natural plants were more suited for combat than nutrition, and I was at a loss for what to do. But that's when a little ingenuity struck. I knew just where to get my meal. Circling back to where I was first attacked by monsters, I soon laid eyes on my dinner. No, not the gloom-infested bokoblin, but what it had on its back. Fire fruit. They packed a spicy punch, but they would definitely keep me alive. I quietly made my way back toward the monster, sneaking up to the pack on its back. Without being noticed, I snatched the fruits and got the heck out of there. Sustenance was acquired for at least a little while, so it was time to focus on the big question. How was I going to get out of the depths on my own? My ride out had been destroyed, and I didn't know what the fate of my team was. My best assumption was that no one was coming for me, so I'd need to find my own path out. But being this deep down a chasm, how could I possibly escape? That's when I remembered what Purah had ascertained from studying Link's maps of the area. The topography of the depths was the exact opposite of the surface. That meant that if there was a chasm at a really low point on the surface, the land in the depths would be a really high point. So, hypothetically, the actual length of the chasm would be short, and I just might have a chance of crawling out of here. Before I could consult my map, though, I could hear the horn of the nearby monster camp. I guess they noticed their missing fruit. I hightailed it toward the Zonai structure from before, hoping I could find some shelter there. Food and water may have been handled for the moment, and I potentially had a plan to get out. But all of that meant nothing if a band of monsters came by and killed me. I soon arrived at the Zonai structure, which I later learned was the great abandoned central mine. I was going to work out my plan to escape, but first, I needed to create a safe space to do that, and this mine seemed the place to do it. I came across some various Zonai devices, but unfortunately didn't find any nearby batteries to power them, so they were no help. Us average folk don't have a nifty power belt after all. The constructs in the area were a comforting presence due to their clear lack of desire to kill me, but they also ignored any attempt by me to communicate. At the very least, this seemed to be a safe place to make a plan. As I settled into the safety of the Zonai structure, a haunting realization crept over me. Survival down here for the long term wasn't possible. Sure, I had found some healing waters and a place of refuge, but my food options were highly limited. Maybe I'd be able to find more monsters to nick fruit from, but there was nothing organically growing down here that I could live off of. Even an elixir made from the deep fireflies would do little apart from making me glow. The clock was ticking, and I had to get out of here, fast! After consulting my surface map, I determined which chasm should be the closest to the surface. I'll tell you where in a moment, but my top concern now was how I was going to defend myself from the monsters. My sword was always an option, but I couldn't take on endless waves of monsters. I had to strategize using the environment and the resources available. Well, the depths didn't organically produce any food. It produced something just as crucial to survival: weapons. Bomb flowers, puff shrooms, and muddle buds were going to be the key to me clearing the path to my escape. I filled my canteen with water, packed the meager rations I had left, and packed all the remaining space with the various plant munitions. With my bag packed, I was off. I spent my days dodging from one place of cover to the next, trying to avoid monsters as much as I could. If I ever found myself in a bind, I tossed out a puff shroom to escape under cover, a muddle bud to get those monsters fighting each other, or a bomb flower for when I was feeling spicy. While I was managing to do a good job dodging monsters, I soon realized that my meager supply of fire fruit had already run out. Even if I didn't run into any more monsters, there was no way I could make the journey all the way to the chasm out. But once again, luck was on my side. In the distance, I noticed a structure that looked man-made, but didn't quite have the polish of the Zonai. As I got closer, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was the Yiga! There was a makeshift Yiga outpost right here in the middle of friggin' nowhere. And there was one thing I knew for sure. If you found the Yiga, bananas weren't too far away. With my stomach growling, I made my way to the edge of the outpost. Yiga patrols were about, but it was hard for them to spot me in the dim depths landscape. As I scanned the area, I soon saw what I was looking for. Crates upon crates of bananas. The moment was right. I slipped in and grabbed as many as I could. Mighty bananas were not just a food source, but their properties would give me an extra boost of strength to carry me through this challenging leg of my journey. I quietly slipped out the back of the outpost and continued on my way. As I traveled, I took care to steer clear of any huge monsters, such as Hinox, Frox, and Lynels. I also made sure to keep an eye out for low-lying areas where I could replenish my water supplies. Then, at long last, I had made it to the final, but by far most challenging, part of my escape. The Barita Lookout Chasm. Looking up at the chasm, it quickly becomes clear why this was my target. Even way down here in the depths, the surface is close enough that you can see the stars. Catching a glimpse of the night sky nearly brought me to tears. I was beginning to think I might never make it out of here. And well, there was still that chance. While the chasm was close to the surface, it still wasn't an easy solution. After all, how would I actually get out? As I wandered through the depths, I had passed several stations filled with Zonai parts, but there was just one problem. I didn't have a battery to power them, and without that, they were of no use to me. But luckily for me, I wasn't going to need one, because right here at the entrance of the most shallow chasm was the one Zonai device that can function on its own, a hot air balloon. Taking a bit of my pine sap glue, I fashioned a nearby hot air balloon cage to the balloon itself. And using some of the wood from the nearby plant life, I soon had my escape pod ready to go. But there was just one problem. How would I light it? I immediately thought about the fire fruit I had hastily consumed days earlier. If only I had just held on to one of those. But that's when I remembered what else I had been carrying around in my pack. Flint! My flint and wood was set, and with a quick swing of my sword, the fire was lit. The balloon took flight, and at long last I was floating up and out to the place I call home. I later learned that my team had all made it out alive. It turned out having a Rito who could just fly out for help made for a pretty quick rescue. Still, not sure how I feel about them having assumed I died so quickly. But in any case, if you're looking for some amazing Hyrulean adventures like the one I just told you about, you should join my Discord and Minecraft server. We've got an incredible community of average Hyruleans who are excited to have new citizens join them. Whether it's going on a roleplay adventure in Discord or building your own survival base in Grazzy's map of Hyrule, I'm sure you'll find some of that good old community fun we seem to be missing these days. And a special thanks to all the amazing members who support the channel, especially our VIPs, Bouncy Bonbon, Hex, Cat Noir, and Nala. If you'd like to support my work, click the join button below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Talk to you then.